I'm Stacy Grinsfelder.
And I'm Daniel Kanter.
And you're listening to True Tales from Old Houses, the mini-sode. Welcome to Season 12.
Welcome.
Oh my gosh, here we are.
And here we are. How are you, Stacy? It's been too long.
Good. It really has. We say this every season. Whenever we leave the previous season, you and I always say, oh, we're going to talk all the time. We're going to text. Let's do it. We really didn't catch up much over the break.
We do a little bit, but yeah, I think between social media and just we talk all the time, I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen as much unless we are recording it.
I feel like I always kind of know what's going on with you, but we haven't had just a you and me conversation here for a while.
Yeah.
So it's good to catch up. Before we launch into today's episode, though, I do want to say thank you to our Season 12 mini-sode sponsors, our old friends, Sutherland Wells and Noonan Heritage Craftworks.
Yes, wonderful to see you guys again, and thank you for continuing to support our nonsense over here.
And for everyone out there listening, if you haven't already left a 5-star rating and review, we would love it if you would take a couple of minutes to do that. It really helps us, so thank you.
Yeah. Like, subscribe, tell a friend, all that stuff.
Great. Now, we don't usually do announcements for the mini-sode, but I kind of have to because, again, we have some housekeeping and catch-up to do. We haven't talked
It's been months.
I know. We haven't seen or talked to our listeners. We haven't talked to each other much since October, the ghost story episodes. And so I have to start with corrections. The first announcement is a correction.
Was it me? What did I do?
No, you're good. You're good. And I've been saving these corrections, since the last episode and then also since the ghost story episodes. So the first one is, remember when we had this discussion about a portico versus a portico-chere? All right.
I was just trying to, I'll admit, I was listening to our last episode before we hopped on this, but then Brad called me. So that's literally where I left off, was us sort of conjecturing about what these things might mean.
So we threw it back to all of you who are listening, and we got an answer. So that answer came from actually a few people, but Allie, I want to say thank you to Allie who sent the answer, and she kind of confirmed what we got to after the first part of our conversation, which is that a portico-chere is something that you would drive through. Maybe there'd be a horseshoe drive, and then you would drive under the portico-chere. You see them a lot. I see them a lot at maybe churches, funeral homes, that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
And you would drive under and then get out of your car so that you don't get wet in inclement weather. Now, the portico, which is what you were working on at your house, is just a little overhang, basically. An overhang with columns, not quite big enough to be called a porch, but it also keeps a person out of inclement weather while they're knocking on your door to leave you a pamphlet of some kind, probably. I don't know.
Wonderful. I mean, I feel we're validated and flawless, and we never have to question that.
And now we will all know what a portico versus a portico-chere is. So, Allie, thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Allie.
Yes.
Swooping it.
Now, the next mistake, maybe, that we may have made, this one is I'm on the fence with this one because I'm not exactly sure where the error came in. But during one of our ghost story episodes, we were discussing something. We were discussing the happenings in a shotgun house. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I don't remember but we were talking about the shotgun house and we described it. And the entire time we called it a shotgun house. But Katie, I got a message from Katie and I appreciate it so much. She said, I think you guys are actually talking about a dog trot house.
I was like, gonna say.
Yes. And, it's funny because I knew exactly what we were talking about, but over and over we called it the wrong thing. So just to clarify that, a shotgun house is a narrow house. It has all the rooms kind of in a row, and there is a door at the front and at the back, and you kind of just go all the way through. Shotgun. If you shot a bullet through, it would go from front to back and out. A dog trot house has rooms on both sides with an open breezeway in between them. And that's what I thought we were talking about, but we were all calling it a shotgun house. And that breezeway, since those houses were built, many of those breezeways have been enclosed. So where I'm unclear is if we were actually talking about a dog trot house or a shotgun house, but either way, I
Yeah.
just wanted to clarify what both of those are, because if we were incorrect, I want you all to know that we are sorry.
I mean, we're not that sorry.
No, I'm not that sorry.
I don't remember the story well enough to remember whether we were talking about a dog trot or a shotgun. Is it the case that like all dog trots are shotguns, but not vice versa? Like, is it one of those?
Well, I don't think so, but I guess we'll throw it back to our audience again to
We'll
save
find
us.
out.
But, shotgun houses, they're narrow, super duper narrow, and they kind of line up a lot of times, side to side, and they were kind of built as kind of fast housing in a way, kind of built up around areas that needed workers with small houses really fast. Whereas
and on
the dog
narrow parcels.
yeah,
generally.
exactly. And the dog trot, I tend to think of as almost more sprawling, sort of a southern house that's wide.
Yes.
So I don't think that would be the case.
Yeah, I think dog trot is a pretty specific, like, southern United States vernacular style. My friend is actually considering taking on a dog trot rehab.
Really?
So if he moves forward with that, we'll have to have him on the show.
That's fun.
Old family farm. It's a pretty cool story.
Yeah. Oh, that would be a great story. And I do think that it's Southern tradition, but I was just in St. Louis last fall, and we were at a little brew pub, and across the street there was a whole row of shotgun houses, and that's in St. Louis. So I think it is not only in the South, but I do agree with you. Anyway.
If you have any information on shotguns or the house is not the objects,
I don't want to know anything about those.
Or dog trots, or just dogs, or trotting.
Right.
We're here.
All of those things are interesting to us. Yes.
Definitely.
The only other announcement, or I guess I have two. I don't know. Anyway, one, I just opened up this drop ship store, and I'm going to put a link. Yeah. So I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes, a little pop-up shop, and it has some preservation themed merch in it, which you may or may not be interested in. But we also have a mug in there with our really cute True Tales from Old Houses logo on it. So if you are interested in purchasing that mug, then the link will be in the show notes, and those proceeds go right to, supporting the show and that kind of thing. So we may or may not be able to put some other types of merch in there. In the past, we've done these merch runs, which we open up the orders and then we order from a supplier and then my local supplier and then ship those out. But we may be able to just pop some things in that dropship store. So they're always available.
Yeah, exactly. I think we intend to keep doing the merch runs because we like those products, but it's kind of a rigmarole. And when people just want to pick something up real fast, there it is.
Exactly. All right.
What else?
So,
any more?
What else? Oh, yes. If you will recall, way back in episode 149, that was our last mini-sode because 150 and 151 were the ghost story episodes. We were wrapping up season 11, and we made some predictions. I asked you, I said, do you know what are you going to do on hiatus? And we made our predictions. Do you remember what you said you thought you would have done by the end of our hiatus, by the time we came back today?
I think it was that my porch would be finished and gorgeous, and that I would be renovating my kitchen.
Very good. Very good.
Is that right? Is that what I said? Okay.
Let me give you... Yeah.
At least I vaguely know.
Let me give you some direct quotes. Your quotes were,
great.
My porch and portico will be beautiful, and my kitchen will be well underway.
Okay.
And then you said, unless I choose to do the half bathroom first.
Okay.
All right. Where are we with that? You want to talk about it?
That's none of your business. Sure. Okay. So, okay, we're not like crazy far off from that. Essentially, what happened was, and I think I also said this, so I'm giving myself a little bit of an out, which was the porch project very well might extend past the fall, and in fact, it did, and not really even in the way I thought it might, which was just kind of like, oh, everything is just taking so long and I'm unmotivated or something. It was really just the scope of the project was huge and became bigger because what I intended to sort of approach as more repair ended up really becoming full rebuilding, the soffit specifically. And that's where all the ornamentation is, and it's just a lot. So just figuring out how to like reverse engineer this cornice and actually build the thing by myself up in the air on the roof, like it was just a really, really intense project. So I got very close. Like I'm really very happy with where I sort of landed, but I had decided, I think when we talked about it, we were like, yeah, around Halloween is like kind of our drop dead for exterior work. I pushed it till almost Thanksgiving. Like I was out there every single day since from I think mid-August through mid-November. So I gave it my very best, and I can't be mad about that.
You and I both live in a place where we had a very extended fall. And so, like you said, Halloween is usually the drop dead date. But no, we're in short sleeves.
I was out there on a t-shirt.
Yeah. There were days where I was still wearing shorts in November, which was unheard of. I have never had a fall like that. So I got a lot of work done too that I did not expect. But to go back to your project, and some people have followed you on social media and they have seen kind of where you are because you kind of dole that out to us like little dog treats. You know, we're like, ooh, give us more, give us more.
It seems that way, but it's really just because like it's hard and it takes a while to post.
Yeah.
And so I just don't always. Anyway, I'm not intending to be like, leave a thing on hanging. I struggle, Stacy.
But for people who haven't seen your social media updates, where would you say you are in that project? So when you started, it was crusty, dry paint on every surface. I think that's where you were when you had started that project. Your porch floor was rotten, I think.
It wasn't really rotted. It was pressure treated. It wasn't really rotted. It was pressure treated decking from probably 20-ish years ago. So it was more that it was really splintery and warped, and it was also, regular 5/4 by 6 decking with little gaps on a porch that was never supposed to have a floor with gaps. Right. So water can get in there and like mess with your framing because it's supposed to have tiny grooves. So I mean, it was just it's a roof to foundation kind of project, and in many ways, it truly would be easier to just rebuild it from scratch because with all new materials, because every single thing that you're touching, I could go out and buy a fluted column for a few $100 or whatever and put it in and it would look more or less the same. And instead I'm stripping, all these things that are so detailed. So like it genuinely probably would take 1/4 of the time to just rebuild it from the ground. Of course, I have no interest in doing that. I'm just saying. I think I could have approached it a little bit differently. So I very much kind of approached it as one project. And I realized halfway through, I probably should have thought about it more like any other house renovation where you have interior and exterior and treated them separately. Because I spent a lot of time at the beginning doing work like inside and under the porch, but not the cornice work that was more weather dependent and stuff. So I probably could have left myself in a little bit of a like less janky looking situation if I had approached it that way, but whatever. I mean, the house can look weird for 6 months. Who cares? So where I actually landed was cornice fully rebuilt, a couple pieces of molding at the place getting replicated now that I have them in hand so I can, prime and cut and put everything up in the spring. And I got all the corbels installed, which I learned a few weeks before sort of wrapping this project that those are called Modillions, not corbels. And so can you even?
Now, this might be a good time to bring up that you actually told me that a little bit ago, the Modillions versus corbels, and we were kind of deciding how we were going to do things this season. And we were like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we talked a little bit more about that kind of stuff, the elements of specific house styles. And it just so turns out that a lot of our guests this season lend themselves well to us talking about some specific things like Modillions in the mini-sodes. So how did you find this out? And What's different about a corbel
Well,
versus a modillion? Or do we need to catch up on that later? Is that a later topic?
no, I think I can do this quick. So I found out because Christopher Brandt, our friend Rockatech,
We love him.
He's been on the show. He's a foundational piece of this podcast in a way.
Yeah. Behind the scenes. Even if we're not consulting him, I find myself often thinking about him. Like, what would Christopher say? Yeah, go ahead.
How badly would he hate me for what I'm about to say? So Chris swooped in and just told me, I'm sorry to tell you, but those are modillions, not corbels. And so I was immediately enraged and turned to the internet to try to, in some way, demonstrate that I was right. Yeah. And of course, I was not right. And so a corbel, this is my understanding, is that a corbel is more of a vertical orientation. So your vertical length will be longer than however far it projects. And a modillion is the opposite. So my modillions are 8 inches deep and about 3.25 high.
Right.
You can tell I've spent a little bit of time with them at this point.
Up close and personal.
Yeah, they're really more like 7.75 to 7/7, if you want to be very specific.
All right, so now I have a follow-up question about that.
Yes.
Your house is not Italianate, or it is Italianate?
So my house is sort of hard to put your finger on, and you'll hear, I think, our next episode next week, we talked to Brent Hull, and he talks a lot about how different styles end up sort of melding together as building styles change, especially when they're not these sort of high style architecture homes. And I think mine very much falls into that category. So I think it has federal elements, it has Greek Revival elements, it has Italianate elements.
Right. And one of those Italianate elements is the modillions.
Yes, but those are also totally characteristic of Greek Revival too.
Right.
And I actually think Italianates use corbels more than Greek Revivals do.
I was thinking that those are corbels. At least the house is here. Now that I know the difference, I'm going to go around and look. But I think I would agree with you. I was going to say, I think you're right. You don't need me to tell you that, but yes.
Then I was humbled a second time because I have forever called a pilaster a pilaster.
Thinking it was what? Thinking a pilaster was what?
No, I guess knowing what a pilaster was, evidently it is pronounced pilaster.
Pilaster. Okay, pilaster.
Which, in my defense, I don't think that I just fabricated that pronunciation. I think an architecture professor, specifically one that I remember, would say it that way. But she also insisted that the eames were the aims and would not be corrected about it.
Right.
So
it sounds like those people that are it's not a GIF, it's a GIF. You know, it's kind of one of those things where, I don't know, who's right, who cares. But
insufferable. How about it doesn't matter?
I would have said pilaster too. I mean, just the way I read English and the way a lot of, English is all screwed up. It has all kinds of weird rules and weird exceptions to the rules. But I think I still would have said pilaster. So who knows?
Pilaster.
And you said a pilaster. See, that's too confusing because it's too close to plaster.
Well, that's a great way to remember.
Yeah, it's true. Did you see Wicked?
Yes.
Okay.
I did.
I'm getting there. I'm going to draw these two things together. But you did see Wicked. Okay. A lot of people saw Wicked. Absolutely loved it. But it reminds me of the Glinda versus Galinda. Remember? So,
sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So pilaster versus plaster. Yeah. It's kind of hard. It sounds kind of similar, but there's a little difference there.
And then they're two completely different things. But
yes,
they're both old housey.
Yes, very much so. I told you I'd bring those two things together. All right.
Great job.
So when you walked away from this, because we're about halfway through the show, actually, you know what? I think before we keep going, let's take a break.
Should we take a break?
We do. We definitely need to take a break. So hold on. All right.
Let's take
hold
a break.
That thought. True Tales from Old Houses is supported by Sutherland Wells. All of Sutherland Wells products are handcrafted in Providence, Rhode Island with the highest quality, sustainably grown tung oil. Tung oil, which is native to China, has been used for centuries as a durable finish for wood, metal, and stone.
So we all know that polyurethane is basically a plastic coating that just sits on the top of the wood, but tung oil finish actually penetrates the surface of the wood so it flexes and contracts as the conditions change. This makes it the perfect pre-finish or protectant for everything from fine furniture to window sash and sills.
Tell me your favorite Sutherland Wells product.
Well, I have a new favorite Sutherland Wells product, which is the exterior polymerized tung oil medium luster. I used it for my brand new porch flooring, and it, after 3 coats, is smooth as velvet. It's holding up in the winter beautifully. I'm thrilled with it.
It's funny that you say that. I use that very product on my wainscoting in the bathroom. Absolutely love it. Yeah. So inside or outside, but whatever you are working on, Sutherland Wells has an entire product line. So if you're working on siding, hardwood floors, furniture restoration, cutting boards, you name it, they have something that you can use.
So to learn more about the complete product line, visit Sutherland Wells. That's WELLES, SutherlandWells.com. And to save 10% on your first order, use the coupon code TrueTales.
True Tales from Old Houses is also supported by Noonan Heritage Craftworks. Now, you may know Joseph Parenti from Instagram for his work with historic exteriors in the Pittsburgh area. He's now extending his offerings to homeowners across the United States with Noonan Heritage Craftworks.
Old houses are tricky things, and it's really hard to find the right help to restore and maintain your old house. Questions like, where do you start? What materials and methods should you use? Who can you even trust? Joseph is here to help.
You can schedule a phone call, a video conference, or email consultation with Joseph to talk through your exterior project and help you game plan. So whether you need to prepare a scope of work or maybe a second set of eyes to help compare estimates, or even figure out the right questions to ask your vendors, Joseph can provide unbiased guidance to help you steer clear of pitfalls and ensure success.
So to learn more about how Noonan Heritage Craftworks can work with you, visit our special landing page at Noonan Craftworks. That's NOONAN craftworks.com/truetale.
I love that we have the same sponsors from season to season. That always kind of gives me little warm fuzzies. All right. Where were we? I had asked you, what I was wanting to know is we kind of dove into your project. I'm sure we'll talk more about it over the coming minisodes and coming months. But when you walked away from it, when the weather finally turned, what does it look like now?
What it looks like right now, everything above the architrave is primed. All the corbels are installed.
Not the corbels.
No, I knew it was going to happen. I'm trying.
Go for
I'm
it.
learning. Okay. All of the Modillions have been reinstalled, all 63 of them, I think.
My gosh, 63?
And then each one has a little piece of molding that goes on all 3 sides.
Right.
And then the, return that gets you to the next Modillion with 3 pieces of molding. So that's what, 200 some odd pieces of little tiny molding, all in the range of like 7 to 10 inches.
And was that crusty old molding you reused, or was that new wood?
I did my very best. So what I figured out with those Modillions, and this is a little in the weeds and boring, but was that because they were all handmade and 150 years ago and all of that, they were really irregular. And so I tried very hard to preserve all of that little molding that goes around each one, but I ended up taking it all off and just putting the Modillions up, and I'll apply all of that molding in the spring because it was just too irregular. Things weren't kind of going together the way they should.
Right. And that's a task you could save for better weather. It wasn't so time sensitive. All right, so you got the Modillions installed, and then what else?
And primed. The roof is all on, of course. The floor is in and sealed. The columns are back in place, but still need some significant apotron repair, and then priming and painting and all of that. And basically under the porch, like, I stripped most of the woodwork, but didn't get to prime or anything.
Okay.
So, I think it's a good lesson in just sort of patience and the reality that especially when you're talking about these old materials, like, it takes stuff a long time to really degrade. And so a lot of people were asking, like, oh, if this isn't done by winter, like, won't something bad happen? And I'm like, not really.
No.
And it'll look really bad, but not really. So it'll be fine. I'll come back to it. Yeah. But I have not started the kitchen.
Or the half bath.
Or the half bath is the short story. But I want to make sure I hear about your story because I'm vaguely aware you're on the staircase.
Yes, yes. I have the benefit of having listened to the entire episode, and so I know what I said. And I said that the sleeping porch, remember that whole thing? The sleeping porch would be done because I paid someone else to do it. And you were assuring me that that counts, even if I have to manage a project, it's the same. It's not quite the same, but it still counts as something that will be done.
Of course.
And then I said something else that I do not remember at all. I said that I would have all of the windows that I had pulled from this house, I would have them finished and back in place.
That was a tall order, Stacy.
That was a tall order. And I didn't even remember saying it. I was thinking, wow, that was really on my radar because I do not remember that. And the funny thing is, you mentioned the staircase. Yeah, I am deep into the staircase project right now. And honestly, I just have about 4 more days to do it. Because I put a hard deadline on myself. Every year I throw a party in January for my friends, and they come over and we have.
Didn't know that.
I know.
That's so nice.
It's so fun. We just have a little potluck, and it's usually like 20, 30 people. I mean, it kind of gets.
What a wonderful
loud.
Tradition.
Yeah, it's fun.
Fabulous. Okay.
So
I've never been invited, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, your invite was lost in the mail. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hate it when that happens.
Yeah, it happens. That postal service. Anyway, we took some years off for COVID. And so the last 2 years people came and there were no balusters, no paint here and there. It just looked so bad. And so my friend Dale, I mentioned him sometimes.
That was the year you had everyone sign the waiver, right?
Right. Nobody can go up and down the stairs because it's not safe. But you know how I mentioned my friend Dale sometimes?
Yes.
Yes.
We love Dale.
Yeah. Dale actually helped me strip the balusters, which God bless him, let me tell you, because that is a terrible job. We sat around sometimes, some summers, this has been ongoing forever. We sat in chair and chatted while we were sanding away at these little balusters and everything. And so every year we get ready to have the party, he'd say, oh, do you think you'd have the staircase? Do you think you might want to, do you want some help? And I was like, no, I'll get to it. So this year, I thought, I'm not going to have another one of those parties without having this done. So I'm now just a few days away from this party. It's not going to be entirely done, but all of the balusters will be up. The outer stringer will be painted. It should be painted.
Exciting.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some major work. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think because you've been so in it for so long, just take us back. What is this project and why?
You mean you don't remember?
Well, I do, but I want to make sure.
I know.
It's
been a long time. It's been a long time. Okay, so what happened was I have this really beautiful grand staircase. There's a little balcony halfway up, and it's just gorgeous. But at some point, I can only guess that maybe when this house went up for sale to freshen it up, somebody went in and just slapped a coat of water-based paint on everything, and it looked nice. But as most of us know, and if you don't know, I'm going to share with you that when you put a water-based paint over an oil-based paint without a proper bonding primer, it starts to fail. And eventually what happens is it just chips or flakes or peels or whatnot. And that had started to happen with the balusters that were coming down the staircase. And it was getting unsightly. Now there are, I'd have to count them. Let's see, I guess 30, I think 29 balusters that go up the staircase, and probably 10 of them were broken. I think this had been an ongoing issue because when I ended up removing them, I have an open stringer on mine, so I can remove the stair returns and then slip out the balusters. They have little dovetails that slip in there, and then I could just pull them out. And when I did that, I found lots of signs of repair. So somebody had tried to repair a lot of these things. So what I needed to do was to take them back to bare wood because there really wasn't any way to get that paint incompatibility repaired without taking it back to bare wood, which is really terrible because there's 3 different types of balusters. There's just one that's regularly turned. There's a fluted one, and then there's a barley twist. We're familiar with the twist. Nightmare. Absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
I
wouldn't have it in me.
If it weren't for Dale, I wouldn't have had it in me either. I mean, he was the one for a while. That was, probably 4 years ago. He's the one that really kept my spirits up when it came to working on those. And so we had probably 2 years, maybe 3 years. It's been going on forever. We went to his workshop and he had rigged up a little jig to put those balusters in, one on one side, one on the other, where we could drill very, very carefully down into those balusters, the broken parts. And then the repairs were kind of up to me. And the reason why we did that is because I wanted to put a dowel in the repair, nice deep dowel on both sides. I didn't end up using glue. I ended up using Durafix, which is an epoxy product that I really like. I know we talk about Abitron a lot here, and they've sponsored the podcast too, but Durafix is it's a little different. It's a little more kind of viscous. And one of the nice things about using an epoxy versus a glue is that, when you put wood glue in, it expands. It wants to push away. So everything you have to do with glue requires clamping, and sometimes some pretty serious clamping. And I didn't want to do that. First of all, clamping a baluster is kind of tricky. I mean, it's just like, where do you clamp it? I didn't want to risk damaging any of the beautiful details. So I used this epoxy and I kind of stuffed it into one side of the hole and then stuffed it in the other and then put a dowel piece and squeezed the broken sides together, and it worked like a charm. I'm
smart.
So happy with it. I'm just thrilled. And then I did come along. There were some imperfections here and there that I needed to fix, and I did use Abitron. I did end up using that, although you could use Durafix as well. So all of those are repaired. At this point, everything is primed. So the stage I'm at, you know how your paint prep is always like sand, prime, sand, fix, prime, sand, paint. So I'm at I have repaired, I have primed, I have sanded, I'm doing the seal or fixing little imperfections with some wood filler. Then I will sand again, prime, and paint. And now that I'm saying all that,
the journey.
The journey. I was going to say, now that I'm saying all of that, I'm sort of thinking, wow, my party is just a few days away. That sounds like
short for that.
It's an awful lot of work to do in 4 days. I may be like one of those things where my paintbrush is, I'm hiding it behind my back while I'm answering the door, and I'll be like, don't touch the staircase. Don't touch anything. The paint is wet. So we'll see.
This will be one for the books.
Yeah, it will.
Can I ask you, just because this came up so much with my project, like I got a lot of suggestions for why in the world are you not getting the stuff dipped? Have you encountered this? I mean, it's illegal in the state of New York, but you could go to
drive to Pennsylvania.
State. Right.
Yeah. So funny that you asked that, because I actually did. I was thinking this is going to be a nightmare. I need to find out about this dipping process. So I did. I actually found a place in, I think it was Pittsburgh, maybe, or someplace close to Pittsburgh that does this dip and strip. So as Daniel said, it is outlawed in the state of New York. The chemicals that they use are horrific. And then, the byproduct of when you're done with the chemicals, what do you do with them? I don't know. So there are many, many states where this practice has been banned at this point. And so I thought about it and I called, and the more I looked into it, the more I felt uncomfortable with the idea of all of that stripper sort of impregnating this fragile wood and getting stuck there. I was concerned about maybe my top coat not adhering properly. They're all made of Doug fir or pine. I'm not sure. I know I'm not exactly sure which variety, but this is paint grade softwood. This is paint grade wood. And so I just got concerned, and I thought, I don't want to do that. I don't feel like that is the right call for this. And since then, as happens when we know more and we do better, I would never recommend a dip and strip place for anything personally. I know people are still, no, I mean, maybe a door, because that's a pretty solid construction, but certainly nothing fragile with any ornate details. But so it's not my thing.
I was thinking like maybe fine for interior stuff. I would worry about whether it's like destroying wood fibers and weakening what is, in my case, generally already sort of compromised. Like I'm already adding things like liquid wood and wood hardeners and things just to like get that softness out. I can't imagine throwing them in a vat of acid.
Right.
hoping for the best.
And hoping for the best. Yeah. No, I am not in favor. I'm not in favor from an environmental standpoint. I am not in favor for protecting your, these old treasures that we have. So that's where I kind of landed on that.
You know what I think it's actually probably great for? Radiators.
What? Yeah, that makes sense.
Because it seems to me that sandblasting can damage the details more than the dipping would. So if you can find a place to do it, that seems like the right application.
Maybe metal. I could go for that. Yeah, metal. I could see that for sure.
Anyways.
Yeah. Anyway.
So, okay. So we have 4 days.
We have 4
to
days.
finish the stairs.
Yes, we do. We do.
I mean, it's such an insane, like, I wouldn't be able to. I
You know
just
what?
wouldn't.
It is an insane deadline, but I'm also kind of sick of it. I'm like,
No, I know.
I've been staring at this forever, and I will not be getting the inside wall done. I'll still have that work to do. There'll still be plenty of touch up and here and there, but I just want to kick my own tail and get this done because I'm so mad at myself for letting it last this long. And it's just been occupying this space in my brain, and I've been looking at it for so long that I am just ready. I am absolutely ready to do it. So yes. Yeah.
And that's my kitchen.
That's your kitchen.
There.
One day.
And I haven't started.
Yeah. One day we'll have this conversation and we'll be talking about your kitchen and I will look forward to it.
It's really exciting.
Yeah.
Like
it will
someday.
be.
Just give me another decade.
It may just break the internet.
Well, if it ever happens. No,
yeah.
it's gonna.
I'll be the first to know.
Well, yes.
Yeah. I never really got back to my sleeping porch, but I just real quickly before we wrap up for today, I do want to say they came and the contractors that I hired came, rebuilt the part that was unsafe, and it looks incredible. It got kicked back to me to do the finish work, which thanks to our lovely fall, I was able to do all of the interior finish work. So that included some board and batten detail. I finished painting the floor. I did baseboards in there. I did window stops, but I did not get to the windows before it got really cold. The windows are in the basement. So after I finish the staircase, then it's back to windows, and that's what I'll be doing.
Nice. Well,
yeah.
I feel like we've just scratched the surface because we both actually have kind of a lot going on.
Yeah, we really do. We
have plenty of mini-sodes to go.
We do. So next week, we'll do the first maxi-sode. What are we going to call those things? I just had this conversation with someone. I'm like, I don't know, the big episodes, the maxi-sodes. I have no idea. But we'll do the first episode. And as you said, we're so excited because Brent Hull, all around.
Man, the legend.
The man, the legend, will be our first guest. And it's a great conversation. So you're not going to want to miss that. Brent Hull's our main guest. We also have a little follow-up on house clearings from the ghost story episodes. And it's going to be a great time. We've booked incredible guests for this season. We want to hear from you, our listeners. We are still looking for listener questions. So please don't hesitate to submit those on the website. You can do that via voicemail or our contact form.
Yeah, hit us up. We want to hear from you.
Yeah.
It's going to be a banger of a season.
Yes, it is. All right. That is it for us, Mr. Daniel. All right. Thank you for listening to True Tales from Old Houses. Until next time.
See you Monday.